This is just so hard. I sure do miss you, Daddy. This is the verse that came up in church the day after my daddy went to be with Jesus. Psalms 34:17 through 18. The righteous cry out, and the Lord hears them. He delivers them from all their troubles. The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those that are crushed in spirit. That was me. My spirit was crushed. My daddy was one of the hardest working men I knew. I adored him. He helped me with my first car, college, he even gave me a sweet job at China City. I loved working with my dad. Did anyone else get fired, or was it just me and Jim? We always came back. And everyone acted like that was normal. So, I love that little man so much. I would help him run the restaurant. What was that? We always came back, yes. I love that little man so much. I would help him run the restaurant before I moved to Jacksonville in 1996. In 2001, I would take my dad to China to visit his family. The problem was he had too much fun, and he decided the day before we were leaving to go home that he was planning on staying. Remember that one?
Oh, I do.
John, Lane, so funny and not funny. And this was 2 weekends after 9/11, so it was not an option. We just needed to get home. He may or may not still be mad at you, Lane, Lon, and John. Or the visit to Australia to see Ling when I was doing the Australian Ironman. Daddy decided to have a serious conversation with me the day before the race. Tansy, I tell you, you should not do this. You could die. Really, Dad? This was as close as I got to him saying, I love you, and I can't imagine life without you, Tansy. I didn't have the heart to tell him I had already done 3 other ones, and I had actually paid to do them. Yes, I was a crazy kid. That is what he called us kids. He was surprised I finished. So funny. I could not walk very well the next few days or on vacation. He would just shake his head and look at me and say, stupid kids. I adored that stubborn man. But it was not until January of 2015 that all of our lives would change forever. My daddy was battling C. diff 3 times, and he could not shake it. We were losing him. It was crushing to watch. The girls and I came in town every weekend to see him. I sat with my dad on the porch one day. I can remember the smell of the jasmine in the air. He looked at me and he said, Tansy, I'm dying. I knew he was. We all knew he was. But it was the fear that I saw in his eyes that broke my heart the most. As I sat across from him, I knew that I could not lie and say he was going to be okay this time. And as I asked if he was afraid to die, and he said yes, it was a very sobering moment that I will never forget. I told my daddy that Jesus was the only one that could give him peace and eternal life, and that he could ask Jesus to come into his heart, and that he would know where he was going. This moment will be forever with me. Daddy said yes, and I reached over and grabbed his hand, and I said a prayer for Jesus to come into his heart. When I opened my eyes, my dad was crying. No words can describe the tangible love of God that was all over my dad. The fear was gone, and he was peaceful. I had not seen my dad look so good ever. So full of hope, so full of life, and he had this smile. This was the day my dad's God story began, and the next 4 years would unfold as one of the most beautiful gifts to all of us, especially for me. My dad recovered from C. diff, and we knew God had given him a second chance. He'd given us all a second chance. He started going to church, and the Lord loved taking all of us with him. Izzy started bringing her guitar and writing songs for her people. He ended up being one of her biggest inspirations and one of her biggest fans. Beautiful watching my girls and the relationship that started growing between them and their people. And it was crazy, but he started telling us he loved us. And if you don't know, my dad never talked about his feelings before, and now he would not stop talking. The game changer was when he told me how proud he was of me, and that Izzy and Taylor were lucky to have me as a mom. Wow. Needless to say, I lost it on that drive home. I guess I never expected to hear those words of affirmation from my dad. What a precious, precious gift. And after nearly losing my dad to C. diff, I embraced every weekend I was there as if it could be my very last with him. Vowing to leave no words unspoken, we had the most endearing and profound conversations. And this is definitely one of my favorites. I was telling my dad how proud I was to have him as my father. Talking about all his accomplishments of coming to America with nothing, and then owning his own restaurant, raising 11 kids, putting us through college. And then my dad, in deep thought, looking at his open hands, said, "You know, Tansy, I come into this world with empty hands, and I will leave it with empty hands." I looked over at him, and he was smiling so big. My girls and the cousins were running in and out of the house with wet feet. The simple joy of being present. He was fully living in the moment. He had worked his entire life to support his family, and he did it so well. But he missed so much of us growing up. And here in this last chapter, he got it. It was in these very moments that he realized he was the very richest man on earth. I love, love, love seeing the world through my 90-year-old father's eyes, especially with this new heart. You can have all the money in the world and still be broke, he told me. But on that day, my dad realized how rich he was. And sitting next to my dad, so did I. Last Saturday was the very worst day and also the very best day. As I headed to St. Pete for my final visit to see my dad, I prayed I would make it in time. When we arrived, the room was packed with my family. But it was as if my dad had been waiting for me with calls. When I said, "I'm here, Daddy," I made it. He turned his head towards me, trying to speak. I touched his hair. I touched his face. I told him I loved him, and he was the very best dad and equal to my girls. I grabbed his hand, and I whispered in his ear, "Jesus is here, Daddy. It's okay. It's okay." And then he peacefully took his last breath. I was there for the beginning of his God story and for the last breath as he entered eternity. And I am beyond grateful that God would give me such a good father with so many beautiful memories. I selfishly want more time for my girls and me, but these extra 4 years and eternity seem like it just may be long enough. I'm almost done. Man, I'm gonna miss you. You're like crazy, Dad. Thank you for loving me and the girls so well. Tell Twyla and Mom I said hi, and save me a seat next to you. I have so much to tell you when I get there. I love you, Dad.